Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's study session for the City of Casa Grande. First item on our agenda, is Jeff not going to be here? Did you get a hold of him?
He has not contacted us at this point, so I anticipate he'll be here.
Okay. Might want to make sure he knows it started at 5:30.
I called him as
All right, tonight's first item on the agenda is a presentation and discussion on the proposed workforce housing project in our downtown area by Chicanos por la Casa. Mr. Raines,
It's actually going to be me, Mayor.
you're going to start, Mackenzie?
Yes, sir.
All right.
So, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm very excited tonight to have Chicanos por la Casa here with us to do a presentation. Getting to this point to even have the presentation tonight has been the culmination of an effort that's taken place over the last 2 years. I think that we released a RFI back in 2019 that was approved in 2020, and they were the developer that ended up responding to that, and they were the ones that were chosen. So throughout that time frame, city staff and CPLC team have put a significant amount of time and effort in rezoning the parcels associated with the project for higher density and zoning, conducted environmental site assessments and surveys of all sites, which also resulted in the cleanup of one of the sites that had contaminated lead-impacted soil. And so that took place at the end of last year. And then preliminary project design, conceptualization, and finance planning has been conducted from CPLC. And then both parties have been engaged in development agreement design, writing, and negotiations. And then, so before I wrap up here, because I know we have a pretty stacked study session this afternoon, I just wanted to have a huge shout out to internal staff, Paul Tice, Jacqueline in the planning department, and then also Mark in the attorney's office and Brett. Without having a unified effort from our city staff, this project has already been delayed through COVID and other circumstances. So it's, without all of us working together to get to that point, it would have been delayed even more than it has been. And then also a huge shout out to Chicanos por la Casa as well, because they've stayed diligent throughout this process and worked with us through negotiations as well. So while it is still educational and nothing has been approved at this point, obviously, before it comes to you guys at an actual council meeting, I just wanted to preface and say that first. So without that being said, I don't want to steal any more of their time, and I'd like to invite their team to come up, whoever's going to be representing and presenting tonight.
Mr. Mayor, member of the council, thank you for having us this evening. We are very excited to be here. We do have a short presentation that we'll be going through, and at any time, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask those, and we'll try to evade them as best as possible. That didn't go over very well, but that's okay. First of all, I'd like to introduce you to our team. This is the development team over at Chicanos. It comes from our vice president to our facilities and land asset managers. The individuals that are here this evening with us are Evelyn Guerrero, who's our real estate development director. Myself, I'm the advocacy manager for Chicanos, and I do the community outreach for our group. We have Scott Wolski, who's our project manager. And then to my right is Michael Smithson, who's our senior project manager. We are broken down into 4 integrated pillars. Chicanos is the 4th largest nonprofit in the state of Arizona. One of those pillars is affordable housing. Our mission is to empower individuals. We believe in hands up, not handouts. So one of the things that is our focus is how do we empower individuals, and one of those is through affordable housing, and especially workforce housing, because there is such a demand for that right now. We currently have 4 real estate developments. The first is what we call our apartments at 25th Street and Bell. I'm going to hand over the explanation of the others to Mr. Smithson. He's a little more familiar with those.
Sure. Thank you, Fidelis. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council.
If you could talk into that microphone, we do have people on recording
Sure.
or that are watching it live, so it helps them to hear.
Sure.
Thank you.
I,
And you can
I'm
move
a
that
roamer.
microphone if it helps.
I'm a roamer, but I'll try to stay put.
Okay.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor, council members. Also, thanks again to Mackenzie, especially, and the rest of the city staff and the city attorney's office for all their help and their hard work in this process so far. So like Fidelis said, our mission at CPLC is empowering lives, and one of the ways that we do that through real estate development is through the development of affordable and workforce housing. Up on the screen is 4 projects that we currently have under development. 25th and Bell Apartments, Pueblo Apartments, and Vista Village Apartments are all in the Phoenix area, in Phoenix, and Nuevas Vistas Townhomes is a first-time home buyer opportunity in Mesa, Arizona, in their downtown area that's currently undergoing a revitalization project. So CPLC, obviously, we try to empower people through the development of real estate as one of our many ways of empowering people. But we don't just develop and leave. We're in the community long after the development is complete through our management affiliate, Tiempo Property Management, who manages all of our properties and stays to manage throughout the life of the property. This is just a quick timeline. I believe everyone on the council was able to get a copy of the presentation beforehand, so I won't excuse me, I won't spend too much time, but just a quick overview of all the hard work that's gone into this process so far. And just a quick illustration of where these 5 sites are located, just to remind everyone here. 4 of these sites are located immediately adjacent the railroad and downtown. One of the sites is located on 3rd Street on the north side of downtown. This slide offers a conceptualization of what some of these apartments might look like. We expect we can get somewhere around 176 units across the 5 properties with a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom floor plans. This slide, the bottom half of this slide is a chart that's published by the Arizona Department of Housing, and it illustrates the income limits and the typical allowable rents for projects that use the same type of financing that we'll be using on this project. This project will target people making between 40% and 60% of the area median income as calculated by HUD. And you can, so that's the top 3 rows of that chart on the bottom half. These income levels are typically consistent with salary and wage levels for hospitality workers, for K through 12 teachers and school staff, for first responders, police recruits, firefighters, EMTs, detention officers, really the bedrock of many of our communities. What 2 or 3 years ago we all referred to as the essential workers. If you take a look at the right-hand side of that chart on the bottom half of the slide, and just keep in mind some of those rents, you can see that as we move on to the next slide, those rents are much more affordable than the current market rents here in the Casa Grande area, which have risen significantly over the past several years. This chart is from a company called CoStar, which is a real estate data collector. They are the company behind apartments.com. So they have a very good pulse on what market rents in a given area are. And then finally, we just wanted to give you a quick representation of what our path forward on this project will look like. We currently have $500,000 in our pocket ready to spend on some of those third-party reports that will be used in the development and design of the project whenever a purchase agreement is able to be signed. We also received close to $1 million in home funds that would go into funding this project as well. And then once that purchase agreement is signed, as you can see, we begin our community outreach right away, which Fidelis handles, and I'll let him speak to what he does there.
One of the, excuse me, one of the things that Chicanos prides itself is that we not only want to be in the area or in the neighborhood, we want to become part of the neighborhood and part of the community. We have what's called a good neighbor policy, and it is comprised of several different aspects. First and foremost, as the process moves along, we try to do as much direct communication with the residents, the surrounding residents, as possible. For example, we had a zoning amendment in the city of Phoenix that we needed on one of our projects. And what I did is I literally walked over 100 of the homes for the residents. I gave them my direct card, my direct cell phone number, and I passed out flyers notifying them that I would be on the site for 2 days to answer any of their questions. So we did, the photograph you see here are some of the neighbors engaging with me, asking me questions about the development, and then asking me questions also about the amendment. The other photo that you see here is with another lady who could not be here today. Her name is Lisa Gonzalez, who's also part of our team. This was for the residences on Main. These are going to be our market rate apartments at the entryway going into Mesa. And again, we were out in the community. We were there to answer any questions regarding the residences on Main so that we have that direct communication with the neighbors and with the community. The other aspect, and I consider it one important aspect, is as I get my information out there, we also have an asset manager whose name is Tony Sanchez. Mr. Sanchez and I are both bilingual. Once a property comes over into our control, we are very diligent in maintaining the properties. Mr. Sanchez is responsible. He contracts out with the individuals that are necessary to clean the properties. We work with city inspectors and also with city officials if we have any transients, any challenges with transients, or we don't want any of the vegetation to get out of control. So we do try to be good neighbors, as a policy suggests, and that really is what we want to be. We want to be a good neighbor. We want to be part of the community. Everyone in this room or anyone in the neighborhood can have my direct cell phone number, and I'm available 24 hours, 7 days a week. I may pocket dial you from time to time, like I did the mayor last week, so I took up about a minute of his voicemail, I think. But I am available anytime, and again, we are both bilingual, and we're here to serve. So that's what we do as far as community outreach. If any of the council members or the members of the public have any suggestions, we're open to those and we'll accommodate them best we can.
So now we'd like to open it up to questions from the council. If you have any questions, we're happy to answer those to the best of our ability today.
Great. I have just a couple comments and then a question from myself. I did attend the grand opening of your Nuevos Vistas townhomes in Mesa. It was a beautiful project. I mean, it really kind of converted some of the blighted downtown area into a really nice first homeowner townhomes, and they're 3-story townhomes. They were beautiful. You guys did a nice job on that. I'm excited because we've been talking about CLPC for or CPLC for a while and trying to get this properties that we have that the city owns on the south side, which has been a number of things, Life on Main and several other things. And so it's exciting, and hopefully we're going to move quickly on this and get this project going. I think it's overdue, and we certainly would like to see this happen. The question I have, and also make a small note too, that you're going to be using this low-income housing tax credit, which most people don't know what the LIHTC stands for, but that's what it stands for, and it's funding that helps keep the pricing of the rent down, and a builder agrees to X number of years to keep it at that rate, and then they have the option to take it out of that if the market so desires, which happened here in Casa Grande, and it's one of the reasons why we've lost some of our affordable housing, is that the builders had that program in place, and then their time frame came up, and there was such a small, or I should say an over need for apartments that literally we lost that affordable housing. So it's great to see this come back. You guys also are helping us with some small business lending with your Prestamos program as well. So we're excited to see that, working with the Chamber of Commerce on that. So I'm very much aware of the CPLC, or Chicanos por la Casa, and all the things you guys do for the community, and we appreciate you being here. So just wanted to say that. And I did have one question. You didn't mention it, but I know it's kind of part of this project, but the Shaughnessy House and the Mission, comments on that, how we're going to incorporate it, are we going to incorporate it? It's kind of all in that area.
Yeah, Mayor, so I'll go ahead and answer that. So we originally kind of investigated that in the first part of this agreement, but because of the lenders and things that they're using, that was kind of a worry for them to put it in this original agreement. So that's going to be something that will happen in phase 2 of this project, because some of the initial studies that they conducted basically showed that they needed to have that density available in that space to kind of entice other entities to come over and take over those buildings. We had some original meetings with a food court vendor out of Tucson and stuff like that to kind of investigate whether or not they wanted to go in there at that time, but they decided not until we have more investment in these
All right,
properties.
well, I don't want to lose that, because those are two key historic pieces for our city,
Right.
and you're all around it. So I mean, it is part of that block, right? So I mean, they're not going to go away, and so I just want to make sure you keep that top of mind.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the question. So our colleague Lisa Gonzalez, who was in the photo on the last slide with Fidelis here, her role at CPLC is business development, and she's been working very hard on those two buildings, connecting with potential users, who may be interested in going into those buildings. So we definitely still very much have intention of making that part of the project. Like Mackenzie said, the main reason for separating that from the housing project is primarily to relieve any confusion or concerns on the part of the LIHTC investors and lenders.
Okay. Well, just keep it on the top of your list.
It definitely is, yes,
All
sir.
right. And then I know we had one of our past planning and zoning commissioners had given me a letter. So his input was that as you develop the design, which we're not in the actual design phase of that project, obviously this is just a study session, but as you move forward, keep in mind kind of our Hispanic heritage here, and maybe keep that in the back of your thoughts in terms of potential design work on this project and what it might look like from actually a design standards standpoint. That was his primary comment that he wanted to make, and yeah, because we are 40+% Hispanic here, and it is some of our heritage. So he just wanted to make sure that that's kept in mind as we move forward with this project. Fellow council members? Lisa?
Just a comment. Well, first of all, I know I saw you all when you were coming in, and I was so excited to see you were on the agenda today to present the status. I'm so excited to see Chicanos Por La Causa come into our community. I have experience, and when I worked in the Phoenix area back in the day when Pete Garcia was running your organization, and so I know firsthand the partnerships that you establish and the collaboration, and so I'm thrilled. I know back in 2019, I sat in the meeting with you guys when you first came in, and of course, when we met with your finance group on the lending, but I think this, I mean, it's a great opportunity. I think these lots are perfect for this type of development. So I think I'm just really excited for the partnership that you bring to our community, and Mackenzie, thank you so much, and our staff for just keeping on this. I know it was back in 2019, and like you said, Mayor, it kind of,
Working on this for a while.
I know, I was like, okay, what's going on, so, and Mackenzie, I know.
I ask that question every week. Larry's getting tired of hearing from me.
I know, but really, I mean, I'm really excited to see this, and I know what a great organization you are and how you serve the communities you're in, and so I really, really look forward to you coming into our community.
Thank you, Lisa. Donna?
Well, first of all, thank you, because, your reputation is stellar in the Phoenix area, and so I'm really excited that you're here. I'm excited about the design. I especially am excited about your good neighbor policy, and I think that with anything that happens in our community, we want everybody to know what's going on and be very transparent, and to be there and to be vocal, and to have opportunities for people to ask questions. You're meeting them where they're at, and I think that's really important for our community. I will say the only thing that has been brought up to me is there's been some concerns regarding foot traffic because of the railroad area down there. And so that's the only, and it wasn't a negative comment. People are just curious about what that's going to look like because, obviously we want people to go downtown. We love our historic downtown, and we want people to be there, but we want them to be safe when they're coming to and from that area. So that was the only comment. So thank you.
Thank you. And if I could, Ms. Councilwoman, the slides we showed, the design is still very conceptual in nature, so we do have an opportunity to incorporate things like honoring the Hispanic heritage of Casa Grande, and making sure that as we work with the city and the planning department, issues in terms of foot traffic on our site will be addressed. We've had a very good relationship with Mackenzie and Stephen and their team in terms of discussing the rest of the revitalization work that the city is trying to address in downtown, and how we might be able to coordinate that.
Some of the Life on Main had like a pedestrian bridge over the railroad, which would obviously improve safety. So, and those are things I think we can probably get grant money for as well. So those are some of the things we need to look at to try and help your project. So, in fact, I know Maricopa received a grant to put a pedestrian bridge over their section of the Union Pacific. It is a major rail line, so it's not like it's a quiet rail line. It's a double tracked and it's busy. So that's going to be an important aspect to Matt's point. So. Any other comments that you want to make?
I had a couple of questions. Some of the concerns have been raised to me is, like this is Section 8 housing or this. But it looks like you guys have worked through this many times before. How do you combat that, the stereotype of that, and how do you keep your properties looking nice and being quality places to live?
Yeah, so I'll start off with saying that this project specifically really is targeting that 40 to 60% of the area median income, which is above the Section 8 level. It's really more workforce housing. The other thing that we do, and Fidelis really does a great job of it, but interfacing with the community and the neighbors, and really educating who is living here. And it's really our neighbors that are already in our community. They're just paying more in rent than they can really, many people can afford. So it's our teachers, our firefighters, our first responders, and 911 dispatchers. They're already in our community. It's not bringing, new people from, some scary place. They're already here. They're our neighbors. We already like them, and we want them to be here. And so Fidelis does a great job interfacing with our neighbors as the project moves along.
Thank you. Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted, so people knew that it was
Right.
a different type. It's workforce. Because you look at the rent rates on there, I mean, they're, some of them upwards of $1,000 a month. It's not, inexpensive by any means, but.
It's not $500 a month.
Yeah. So,
And if I could add,
yeah.
Mr. Councilman, regardless of income source for all the different projects we work on, we do have properties in our portfolio up in Phoenix that do include some of those Section 8. Regardless of income source, all of our tenants do still have to pass the screening criteria of our management company, Tiempo. So there's still a screening. We're not just letting anyone walk in the door.
thank you. Yeah, because it just has a negative connotation, but I know that you guys manage it well, and it's, it's going to be, and you guys own the properties.
Right.
So a couple of other things, as I saw
They
some.
don't build it and walk away.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. But the other thing I saw is, I don't know if it worked in these particular ones, but on that one project, you had some commercial space downstairs. I don't know if that would work here, but at some point, maybe some project like that downtown. But the other important part to know is once these properties are taken out of the government's ownership, then then they go back into the tax rolls. So that's one benefit. And also, we've always talked about our downtown, the life down there. One way to get that really kick-started again is to have people move down there. So they're walking around, they're going to the restaurants, then that brings more restaurants and more stuff as well. So this is kind of a good thing to help with that as well. So we appreciate it, and we look forward to hearing more about it. And thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Fidelis, Evelyn. Is Scott here too? I only saw the three of you. Oh, there he is, hiding in the back. Okay. Well, thank you all for being here, and thank you for your presentation. Anything else, Larry, on that topic? No, Mr. Mayor. Okay. I think the next topic is our graduation certificates and leadership academy. So I think we're going to bring. Oh, you need a minute? Well, then I'll give a little recap. I don't have to do it down there. The Leadership Academy is something that we do, the city of Cuscadeña has done every year for how many years now? 2003. So since 2003.
20 years.
I know I was in the class of 15, I think,
2.
and Donna was 2. Matt? Did you?
Yes, I went to it.
But he doesn't remember what year. Anyway, a lot of us have gone through it. It's a great opportunity to really learn about your city. If you haven't signed up for it or haven't done it, I would highly recommend it. It takes you through everything from where your wastewater goes and how it's treated to how your police and fire operate and how your city operates, from your city manager to accounting to our HR, our community services, streets. You even get to, if it's done correctly, or at least I think I got to go out to our dump, which is actually a pretty fascinating landfill. I'm sorry, the landfill. It's like you don't call it a sewer treatment plant anymore. You call it wastewater treatment. So, but it's really every aspect of your city and where your dollars go and how it is managed. So it's fascinating actually. If you're any bit of a geek in terms of how your city runs, it's a worthwhile process, and it's 6 weeks. So we want to make sure we encourage everybody. If you do sign up for it, you attend all 6 weeks, because if you miss a week, you miss a big chunk of the information. Are you ready?
Ready, Mr. Mayor, if you and the council will
We
join
can
us
do that.
down here, and we'll be able in a position to offer your congratulations to our graduates this year. 2023 marks the 20th anniversary of the founding, the start of our Leadership Academy. We missed a couple of years because of COVID, but it's been a great experience, and we've got a lot of graduates run through our program, including these tonight. So if y'all will just come in here, we're going to bring our graduates through here, and you'll each have an opportunity to extend a handshake of congratulations. And then what I'd like to do, we're going to go in alphabetical order, and after you come through and get your certificate and your logoed shirt, if you would stand over here on this side, after we're finished with the presentation, we're going to have a picture with you and the mayor and council, and then we'll have the mayor and council go back up, and we want to get a picture of you all in our graduating class, okay? So it was a 7 weeks session, and with 2 optional sessions, one being the mayor's State of the City event, and the second being an optional facility tour to kind of take you behind the scenes of places that you might not otherwise be there. And we're going to call this our 2023 spring session because we're already making plans for the 2023 fall session. This is because of the number of individuals that we had who were interested in being a part of this. We were not able to accommodate all that wanted to be a part. We had the biggest class that we've ever had for our spring session, but we're going to be setting up times for the fall session and opening that up. And we'll be starting with those individuals who applied to be in the spring session but were not able to be accommodated, and then we'll see what we have from there. So to those joining us at home, just have to keep watch on our website. And anyways, my name is Scott Barber. I'm the Human Resources Director for the city, and it's been my pleasure and my privilege to partner with Heather Kennedy and her team from the Public Information Office to conduct this year's session. They handle the logistics, and I got to be the fun part of hosting. And I can assure you, as our departments presented their information, they were delighted to be able to share all of the details of what they do and how they do it, and involve some of their staff as well. So it's a great exchange and opportunity for us to be able to tell all of you all of the great things we think that we do for you as citizens and taxpayers in our community. What we'd like to do is your name is called, if you would come forward, and Heather's going to bring your certificate and shirt up here, and then we'll go through that way and go from there. And hopefully I'll pronounce everybody's name right. So first we have Tabitha Avery. Next, Butch Alaya. Okay, we knew there were a couple of individuals that couldn't be here this evening, so we'll make sure they get their shirt and their certificate. And I'm assuming Lisa Alaya is not here? Okay, we always have at least one couple in our group, and that's them. Next is Jean Bauer. Jean? And Fred Bauer, spelled differently. Next we have Sarah Bracey. Edgar Duarte. And right behind him is Veronica Duarte. Elena Esiloma. Next we have Aaron Gehring. Amy Harrison. and Reina Hernandez. Tyler Kettner. Keith Latimer. Taylor Nakakihara. Alan Nambasha. James Pacheco. Justin Price. Nathan Sheeler. Eliza Soto. Dr. Alexander Stern. Lorena Viescas. Rodney Williams. Is that just in time? Rodney Williams. Charles Yednak. Getting crowded over there. Dana Zados. And last but not least, Betty Zambrano. We look forward to some of you, maybe many of you, perhaps all of you, at some point in time joining us as a member of one of our boards, commissions, or committees here at the City of Casa Grande. Or maybe even run and be elected for the council, as 3 of our members, Matt, Donna, and the mayor, all 3 graduates of our Leadership Academy in the past. So one more round of applause, then guys come up and we're going to get a picture. Thank you so much. While they're coming up, I should have mentioned that those members that we knew were not going to be here this evening included Amris Elizabeth Castellanos, Mike Ritter, and Marie Lourdes Rosca. They were not able to be with us for sure this evening. I'll make sure they get their shirts.
Mike's down. I won't see it
There we
anyway.
go.
If they make you start wearing a sport coat and you do bigger one. Make you start wearing a sport coat now or what?
There's no comment.
I know, right?
Can you see Donna?
Just stand on the chair.
Gonna step on my sandwich.
Everybody, yep, okay. All right, you're on 3, 1, 2, 3. From this side.
Thank you all.
Congratulations.
I
You
know.
guys go home and watch the basketball game. Well, we have a plan with our police department and everything with the school districts. Oh, yeah, there's a plan. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And a presence too. So, thank you.
Can you give me an idea of what you're doing if there's a situation in the school district? Is there a plan? Can you, there's brains here? Yeah, I know. Got the man right here. Right? I was thinking.
All right, thanks and congratulations to all of our graduates. We'll move on to item number 3. This is a presentation and discussion on our updated Parks Master Plan. Community Services Director, Danny Gallegos. Danny?
Mayor McFarland, Mayor Pro Tem Lavender, members of the council. Is this on? There we go.
There you go.
Okay, well, we're one step closer to our master plan adoptions. Hopefully, we'll have that done in May. We've been working on this next phase of the project with the sustainability of our current parks, the conceptual plan, and some of the funding strategies. I'd like to bring up Michael Schwentz. He's with Pros Consulting, and he's going to go through the presentation and let you know where we're at in this next process. So I'll turn it over to Michael.
Great. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Appreciate the opportunity once again to kind of give you an update. We are down the home stretch, and so we have covered a lot with you in hopefully what you've appreciated are digestible chunks from, you know, kind of the overview of the process to the community needs to level of service and connectivity analysis related to your trails. And this evening is really going to be, I'll make sure I go the right way, kind of the home stretch before we come back to you in a month or so with regards to the full master plan. So as we talked about previously, part of the scope of work associated with the master plan was developing some concept plans for properties that you own. And then, of course, a big component is the cost estimating for capital improvements. A light touch with regards to funding strategies, next steps, and then any questions that you may have. So the concept plans, and I think this is mostly for the public's information, but the concept plans are really 3 in nature. One is the Outdoor Aquatic Center, 12 acres, which is adjacent to the community center. Ed Hooper Paul Mason Regional Park, 143 acres. And then the Natural Area Park, 130 acres. Now, this was originally supposed to be associated with Dave White. However, that recharge project is not possible in that location. So we went ahead and actually did a site-specific master plan without a specific site, just to give you guys a general sense of what that all would look like. So what is a concept plan? It's really a high-level idea. It's a test fit. You know, it's more about what could happen, not necessarily what will happen. It's flexible. So I say that because as soon as you start showing pictures of what something is going to be or could be, everybody locks in and says that's exactly what it's going to look like. That's exactly how it's going to get planned. As you know, there are a lot of steps between now and an actual construction documents and before any sort of groundbreaking were to happen. And so these are meant to be an idea of what could happen, but they're also very responsive to the community's needs. And also very responsive to the fact that your population is going to be approaching 100,000 people in about 15 years. So we've got to take all of those things into consideration when we talk about these concept plans. So the first one is the Recreation Center Community Park, for lack of a better word. To the north there, you can kind of see where the Recreation Center kind of is right now. Everything in the kind of dotted white outline is kind of the study area associated with this concept plan. So, you know, just kind of again, this is what's kind of proposed. It kind of gives you a general sense of, you know, North Pert Road here. You've got O'Neill Road to the south, housing development adjacent to this, and then, of course, housing and then open space that the city currently does not own. To zoom in on this a little bit further, though, this kind of gives you a general sense of what we're what's possible there. I think one thing I want to go back to, though, very quickly is, and this is a really major driver of this site, is this is the entry road into the community center. As you know right now, it's pretty much a right turn in and a right turn out. And so if you're going to look to further develop this area, this has to change. There's no possible way that you can activate this site anymore and continue to keep this ingress egress in this point. So what, you know, kind of going fast forward, again, here's the existing recreation center, here's the existing parking. The main component here is the aquatic center and pool. That would not fit on that small piece of property between the entry road and the community center. We wanted to locate it here to gain synergy and efficiency and effectiveness with regards to the operations, not having necessarily two separate entrances, two locker rooms, and so on and so forth. So what we have done is located this facility kind of, you know, on the north side and then the south side of the entry road, but it eliminates this entry road and moves it a little bit further south, where you do have an opportunity to better align it with the road coming out of the residential development. So in addition to this facility, we wanted to have a playground and some open turf area. We also were very, very cognizant of these homes, and so what we didn't want to do is activate very heavily anything adjacent to these homes. So we've really kept the majority of the active development of this property closest to Pert Road. And so you kind of have some meandering pathways, some entryway. You do end up with a trail connection. You do end up with a road that comes out to O'Neill as well. And then another opportunity to kind of activate this site is some open turf area, some restrooms, parking, and of course a dog park or an off-leash area. So this is really kind of taking advantage of this site and the synergies that can be created with the existing recreation center, but being very responsive to the fact that you're a community that's going to be 100,000 people in the next 15 years. The one pool that you currently have at Carmachnat is not going to be enough. And of course, you're going to certainly need to continue to add dog parks along the way. So the next project is Ed Hooper Paul Mason. You can see a lot of open space. This is 143 acres of possibilities. As you know, this is the area that's currently activated. And then this, of course, is the equestrian area, rodeo area. So what does this look like in the future? Possibly look like in the future. This is a major sports complex development. So I think the key to recognize here is that we're trying to be responsive to the fact that your community is going to continue to be very family oriented. Your community is going to grow by 40-some thousand people, and you do not have enough athletic fields going forward. So in addition to the athletic fields that are here today, we're adding an additional, I guess, clover leaf of baseball fields or diamond fields that can be utilized for adults and kids. You have parking, you have obviously roadways. The key to this kind of site is to ensure that you have parking dispersed throughout the entire site. You can't locate it in any one specific area. You also need additional restroom facilities in throughout the facility. And then one of the things in terms of level of service is we identified multi-use fields. I think this is important. Yes, they might be dotted in terms of our line just for configuration, but they're multi-use fields. So they can be used for soccer, they can be used for football, they can be used for flag football, touch football, tackle football, lacrosse, if that becomes a need. And the idea here is to recognize that these are truly multi-use fields. They're not designated only for soccer. And so that's important. There's 12 of those, 4 baseball fields, an open turf area, playground, kind of a destination location, opportunities for an amphitheater or stage. We're kind of keeping a parachute landing in this area, but then, potentially, and this is not necessarily meant to be the amount of space that's necessary. It's just something that we need to take into consideration. But then tennis courts and pickleball. Pickleball is continuing to be a growing sport. By percentage, it is the fastest growing sport in the country. However, tennis has also grown significantly since COVID. In fact, tennis has added close to 6 million participants and grown by over 33% nationally since COVID. So again, kind of being responsive to community needs as well as trends. As you can see, this is a regional park. This is a regional sports complex. It is likely that this kind of facility would need to be done in phases because it will be expensive. So expensive that we're not incorporating it into the capital improvement plan simply because we want to make sure that as part of the capital improvement plan, we're doing something that's realistic for you. This is very aspirational in nature, but it's also something that is going to be needed at some point in your future. And then the last area is that natural area wetlands. So again, this was something that was envisioned by, close to Dave White. But this is similar to some projects that are in the valley, whether it be in Chandler or potentially be in Gilbert. The idea is to take advantage of the recharge project in the basins that are created by it and create a natural area. This is also being responsive to community needs, creates a lot of opportunities for walking paths, creates an opportunities for a passive natural area, and even the activated areas that we're talking about to the south would really be parking, restrooms, maybe a demonstration garden, and maybe a destination location, what we would call kind of a nature play. Not what you would see typically in terms of, a module kind of playground that's multicolored. This would certainly be something that would blend into this site. So again, the idea here is to connect it not just opportunities to connect it with any sort of public road, but to ensure that we connect it with your trail system as well. Since this is certainly going to be an opportunity, especially on maybe not necessarily today's like today, but with the wind, but weather like today would be an awesome opportunity to go out. You could do some bird watching, you could take a hike, just really opportunities to get outside and enjoy the kind of weather that we get in the, hopefully in the fall, winter, and spring. So I guess I'll stop there and see if there are any questions, because that's one big chunk, and then before we get into numbers.
Questions, anyone?
Okay, great.
I think we're all pretty familiar with most of it. The wetlands piece, maybe not so much, but the others.
Okay, fantastic.
good. Thank you.
Thank you. So, cost estimating. So, of course, this is where we start to talk about things in numbers and reality, right? If we put together a master plan and we weren't responsive to the question that you would ask, which is how much is all of this going to cost, it would kind of feel incomplete. So, here are some of the overall assumptions. All projects must be financially viable or possible within the next 15 years. All projects likely to be implemented or included in the actual plan. Projects must be consistent with other planning efforts and projections. And these do not include, as I mentioned, the aspirational projects associated with Ed Hooper and the new natural area park. So other assumptions, costs are intended to be a rough order of magnitude and based on park and rec amenities only. There are also some significant cost escalators built into years 6 through 10 and years 11 plus. So 35% additional cost built into anything in years 6 through 10, a 55% additional cost built into years 11 plus. And then, of course, city staff should continue to evaluate cost estimating information. As you know, if we have put together a plan like this 5 years ago, the cost estimates would have been very quickly outdated. Our hope is that actually being able to provide you cost estimates today as things start to hopefully cool down on the construction market, that the pricing is a lot more valid than, say, if this plan would have been done in 2019 or 2020. So some improvement plan methodology, there's two buckets. Really sustainable is life cycle replacement. So this is just taking care of what you already have within your existing system. And as we've talked about previously, you have a pretty extensive community services, parks and recreation system. You have a lot of acreage, you have a lot of amenities, you have a lot of facilities that over time are going to have to be reinvested in. Additionally, then you have visionary projects that expand upon your existing system that's responsive to community needs today, but also the projected population. This could be doing things such as adding to your existing footprint, adding park acreage, but adding trails, which is a big driver, as well as then potentially just adding features to existing parks. So, sticker shock, right? So I will break this down, but I figure I might as well start with this and work my way backwards. So you have in the sustainable bucket, which is just life cycle replacement over the next 15 years. Now, granted, there are a lot of cost escalators built into this as well as some soft costs, but we're talking about $120 million over the course of 15 years just taking care of what you already have. Now, life cycle replacement doesn't happen in 1 year. It doesn't happen in just years 1 through 5. Your system's built at all different stages, and things last a different life cycle. So such things as a ramada or a picnic shelter might last you 20 to 25 years. A playground might last you 15. So there's always this staggering of replacement that takes place. But the other thing to recognize is that it never stops. It is always going to be. There's no different than roads, streetlights, signage, you name it. It always is going to be there. 60% of this total capital improvement cost estimating plan is related to life cycle replacement. 40% is related to growing your system. Now, keep in mind, there are significant cost escalators built into this. This is not reflective of today's dollars. So let's look at it a different way. We just kind of showed you, the general understanding of $122 million associated with parks, $24 million facilities, $21 million trails. Yes, we backed that number down from the connectivity analysis simply because we're proposing decomposed granite trails that could be paved later through opportunities with the development community as opposed to paved trails right off the bat. And then, of course, you have some planning efforts and then all those soft costs. This way gives you an understanding of where are you spending the money. 61%, almost 62% is on parks. 12.5% is on facilities, so that's brick and mortar. Another 10.5% on trails, and then really about 14 to 15% associated with soft costs. That's all design, construction documents, the whole smash. So let's look at it in 5-year segments. And this, I think, is very responsive to the fact that, number one, the bond failed last November. And number two, that you have to identify and work to get funding strategies. And that doesn't happen overnight. And so what we wanted to do was ensure that the first 5 years, the next 5 years, was not we just didn't want to front load that. We wanted to put the emphasis on life cycle replacement in your parks at about $2 million and really focus on the community's number one need, which was trails, at about $7.2 million. So of this entire plan, only 6% of it is in the next 5 years. But again, it's being responsive to taking care of what you already have as well as expanding your trail system. And then kind of lastly, if we were just to look at the first 5 years and breaking it down by project type, the majority of the money is going to trails. The second amount, highest percentage, is going to parks. So again, I think what we're trying to do is set you up for success. We're not trying to say, let's fund 50 million, let's fund 75 million in the next 5 years. Let's fund what's realistic in the next 5 years and allow you then the opportunity for the out years to start to identify the different funding strategies that are necessary to make those projects happen. I think one thing that I do want to point out, if I can go back though, is keep in mind that there is going to be a big bill that comes due right here when it comes to sustainable projects associated with parks. It's just going to be a big number that you need to take into consideration as you start to think about taking care of your park system in the out years. So really 2028, 2029, 2030. I know it seems like a long way away, but it'll be here before you know it. So the Recreation Center Community Park is included. I think it's recognized that it's spread out over the cost of over the course of basically 15 years, but it's $50 million taking into account the escalators, and that's 26% of the total CIP that you're seeing. So I think that's important just to recognize. All right, so funding strategies, again, grants, your life cycle replacement, about the $500,000 that you guys get annually to reinvest in your system. It's only going to go so far. City capital improvement general funding, really teeing up the general obligation bond again, recreation impact fees, and of course partnerships. So our next steps, development of a strategic action plan. We're going to present for hopeful recommended for approval, the final master plan to the Community Services Advisory Board at the end of this month, around I think 27th, and then be back to you kind of in a work session to summarize everything in May, and then seek your adoption at some point in shortly after, whether it be late May, early June, depending upon how it fits on your agenda. All right, any other questions, concerns, comments, suggestions?
Just a suggestion on the maps, maybe on the multi-purpose fields, we don't line them like soccer fields.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Why do you bring that up?
I've got a few comments.
Understood. Fully.
We have several football people who were, all they saw was soccer fields, so.
Yes, understood.
Matt?
I don't know, a question for you or Danny maybe, but the maintenance and operation of all this new park stuff, I'm sure you'll have to plan that into the budget, but how do you, I'm sure you have some formula or something per square foot, acre?
Actually, Danny, I can answer
Okay.
that. So we are going to incorporate into the plan an operational assessment
Oh, good, okay.
related to programs and services and maintenance, give you some guidelines associated with the amount of staffing levels and the amount of total dollars that you need, almost like on a per acre basis, but also based on kind of park type. So that we're not just, so athletic fields, what it costs to maintain them, against what it would cost to maintain a pocket park to a community park, a neighborhood park.
And plus you said programming as well?
Yes.
Okay. And one other interesting thing I heard, which looked neat, and I know, again, very conceptual, but like an outdoor amphitheater type thing looked like it'd be a nice place.
mentioned it. We didn't
You
see
did,
it.
I know you mentioned it, but I think that's something that would be good at some point in the future. It's just gonna be how do we pay for it and how do we upkeep it, so.
Yeah, special events was one of those high priority program and service needs. So that's
And
why
the,
that was
And
incorporated.
I'm really happy you got the trails. There was a lot of trail connections and
Yes,
everything, so,
got it.
thank you.
Mr. Lavender?
So the Hooper project is not part of this 198 million, am I correct?
It is not right now. The price tag's pretty significant, and partly because that is a lot of raw land that needs to be developed.
Can you go to the slide that had,
That project?
the trails on it, please?
This one?
No. The cost.
Oh, the cost, I'm sorry, yes.
So that's $7 million for trails. Those are existing trails or expanding the
That's
ones?
expanding trails.
Okay. So is any of that 7 million, any of the trails out at CG Mountain?
Any of the, I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Is any of that 7 million you're talking about there out at CG Mountain?
No, there's
don't
some,
believe
there-
so,
yeah,
no.
there's some small segments that we could use in the future, but it's not, those aren't our priority trails at this point. We have other priority trails that we have in the master
They're part
plan
of the
that would
maintenance, they're
come.
part of the sustainability.
They would be more of the
Aren't they
sustainability.
part of the sustainability piece that you had?
Correct, yes. We wouldn't add, those would be the last trail segments we would add, and have other priority trails before that.
So as I look at this, and this looks like a 20-year plan, am I correct?
15.
15, there's no plan to expand any fields during the next 15 years, but there are plans to expand trails, am I correct?
Correct.
And you've heard from the community, there's a greater need for trails rather than ball fields when the number one complaint I hear is the lack of ball fields available for teams?
It is. When it comes to the highest priority needs of your community, when it came to amenities, it was paved trails, it was hiking trails, it was loop trails, it was, even mountain biking trails. That dominated the high priority list, and it did not matter where you lived in the community, and it really didn't matter age segment as well. It doesn't mean that the thing is I think your community is going to grow. So your footprint of almost everything that you have is at some point going to have to expand. It's just that we have to align the priorities of the capital improvement plan with what your community has said that they desire the most.
And do you think it was clear to those taking the survey that CG Mountain is a part of the trail system, or did they not identify that?
I believe so, because we had very specific questions related to mountain biking
Okay.
trails.
All right. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Other questions?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bob.
I'm going to get on my soapbox. So I brought this issue up before, and I apologize for beating it to death. But I strongly feel that we have a diamond in the rough in our city, in the Santa Cruz Wash that runs across the north side of our city. It runs completely from the east side to the west side. It's already bordering Rotary Park and Dave White Park, and I think it's part of your natural area that you have set up in this plan. I think it borders it or flows into it or something, the wetlands that you have on here.
Yes.
I can see that someday as similar to the Indian Bend wash system and
In
park
Scottsdale.
system up in Scottsdale. I believe that we are remiss if we don't start putting things in place that someday, that's our intent of developing that area. And I think our obligation at this point is to start including it into plans like this, just as mentioned. I mean, I don't have any idea what dollar amount to put in that, but I think we as a city, and this I'll look at Larry for, I think we need to start establishing some rules, some right-of-way projects. I have said before, my nightmare is to look at that thing 20 years from now and see cement culverts, because that drainage way is going to have to be maintained in some form. And I think it so has the potential of being a connected park and trail system with a riparian feel to it. We've seen it recently flowing quite heavily. I know we've had a wet winter, but heck, we've had a river running through our city sometimes. And I think we are not mentioning it at our fault. I think we need to include it in these documents and start talking about it. So, and with that, I'll step down from my
Well, Councilman
soapbox.
Huddleston, Michael and I did talk about it since the last meeting, so we put a segment in there to have that discussion on the Santa Cruz wash.
Okay.
As part of that segment. So when we see the final product, it will be included in discussion.
It will.
It will be a discussion, because today's topic was really about the parks themselves. And I guess I can understand where you're coming from as far as that wash being more of a park
Right.
than an actual wash or a trail. But we can mention that in the
It's
final
kind of a
answer.
combination, I think,
It is
Danny.
kind of a
It's,
combo,
it's a
correct.
park and a trail, you know what I
Right.
mean? So, and it connects all of our parks, and it connects all of our trails. So it's kind of an integral part of the city, and his example of Scottsdale's drainage system is a perfect one. Whether we'll ever look like that or not, who knows, but at least we can put it in the plans.
Right.
And I think that's a good idea.
Well, I appreciate it, Danny. Thank you.
It is called out in the master plan, so what you see here is a summary.
Okay.
Every project in the master plan has detail to it. The trails very specifically relate to the prioritization that we showed you the last time, but the addition in particular around Santa Cruz Wash, after your feedback, we've incorporated that into our mapping, as well as the capital improvements associated with that 7.2 million.
So that Santa Cruz wash would be like our Ed Hooper Park. We don't have any funding for it. So, but it's on the wish list.
Thank you.
It looks great, and I love the fields. I agree with Bob as well. I live close to the water, and it goes down to Dave White all the way, and floods areas over there. We definitely have to look into that, but as we do grow, we expand, I believe those fields, everything's gonna come into play for our youth, and the different things that we have going on in the city as we grow, where it's gonna be needed, even with the trails. I believe we gotta maintain the trails, keep up the work with the trails, improve it, get better, get more in, as well as fields. Fields, where multi-use fields, I believe was the terminology on there was multi-use.
Correct.
So we can use soccer, football, whatever it may be, as we think about our youth down the road, and so. Looks great.
I mean, we're running out of fields for Little League too.
Most
So,
definitely.
I mean, it's kind of across the board in terms of youth sports. And, I mean, I was at the opening ceremony of the Little League, and they had turned away 10 T-ball teams, which means there's a whole lot of kids coming up in this youth baseball. And there were 2,000 people there, 600 kids and their parents and grandparents and siblings. And it was packed. And those are really the only baseball fields that we have for youth, for our Little League system. And I know you and I have had this conversation, Danny, and we're looking at trying to expand that even at their current facility. So
Correct.
there's some temporary fixes, but as we grow, obviously that football, youth football, all of that is going to put some pressure on our system.
It already
So-
has.
Yeah. Donna?
Just a couple quick comments. You know, one of the things that I'm most proud of is that Community Services Department, when we're talking birth all the way to those of us that are now seniors and seasoned citizens, we've got to have a broad base of activities. And I appreciate the fact that when we're talking about having different fields and having different uses and stuff, I know that those of us that have been here a while, we saw some of the issues around tennis and pickleball, and we needed to work on that so that we could accommodate both of the groups. And I think that we have to do that with the football fields and the soccer fields. So I think that that's, you know, something that we can still be proud of. It's a lot of money. And we probably 20, 25 years ago were saying the same thing when we were developing, you know, Casa Grande Mountain. I remember being out there with shovel in hands and we're like, we're never going to be able to do this. And we did. So we just have to accommodate and prepare for that. But I do appreciate the fact, because I've had people contact, you know, several of us about the football fields. And I also want to mention the BMX. You know, that's a whole new territory for our city to have, you know, the bike area, and I really appreciate the fact that, you know, Danny has met, you know, was the skate park. So I think that we're on the right track. We just have to prepare, as Bob said. So I appreciate this.
Chipping away.
This is a guide.
And find
for
some
us.
money.
So.
Yes.
I think the best part about this is you own a lot of land. There are a lot of communities that face these challenges and don't know where to start because you don't have the land.
Right.
The fact that you have the land gives you a really strong fighting chance at being able to move projects along much more quickly than if you did not have the amount of acreage that you have available to you.
And the last thing I just mentioned, because of what Jeff had said, I think that, you know, it is our responsibility as a community to get the word out there and make sure that we have people's opinions. And that's why it's so important that when we have these surveys and we have this outreach, that people participate, because we only can do and plan for what those that stand before us and tell us what they want. And I know that we've done that, and I know that we had a lot of opportunities, but it just goes to show the more that we are transparent and ask for those opinions, the more it's going to help us do the planning. So, thank you.
Great. Bob?
Just one last comment. Needing and wanting more fields, more trails, more parks, good problems to have. I mean, our community is very involved, and we're proud of that and support the endeavor. Danny.
And just to remind people that they also voted down the bond here recently, that we could have had some money to do these things that we're talking about today. So just to remind everybody that if we float that out there again, might be an opportunity to rally and support the need for some of these, you know, these features that we're talking about. So, all right.
I do
Thank
have one more comment, Mayor. And one of the things, Danny, that maybe we can look at before this final proposal is looking at what would be the cost to add lights to existing schools that have fields that could be utilized at dark if we had lights out.
Certainly.
I do know at the high school, the youth football, I mean, the use of the lights is pretty minimal compared to the cost, but all the infrastructure is in place. And what would it cost to partner with the schools to do the infrastructure to create the lights for the city to utilize those fields? So we have multi-use fields. Schools use them during daylight, community uses them at night. May solve some of our problems to get us through fields until we get more money.
elementary school district too, not just high school
There's
district.
12, you know, all the campuses in the city.
Mayor Pro Tem Lavender, just to give you an idea of what a cost of a replacement costs. For example, we received a recent quote for Paul Mason to replace just those lights alone on those ball fields cost $720,000. So it just gives you an idea of what that looks like. So partnering with
That's just for the lights?
that's just for the light replacement.
No pole, just a
No,
light?
the poles are already there. So, and those aren't the highest level. So it just gives you an idea of what those are. But partnering with the school district would benefit both entities if we were able to accomplish that.
When we redid CG Middle, I know I talked to the current superintendent, she's not there anymore, and maybe this is a topic to bring back up with Dr. Leckie, but those fields behind CG Middle, I had suggested that we could make baseball, football fields there. If they put in lighting, that the city could maintain the fields, meaning there's some cooperation there or collaboration, because we have a lot of space. It's just how do we utilize it better?
And I think that we can look at a short-term fix, and even if it's just on Saturdays during the day, is a possibility.
Yeah,
Even if the
and I
lights are not a
have
question.
reminded all the superintendents that their facilities are also public facilities.
All the superintendents.
You haven't reminded me yet, sir.
Well, you were there when I reminded them. So, anyway, I think we have a lot of opportunity. We just need to collaborate and work together on making it happen. So, not so that it's an expense to the schools per se, but, you know, if the city can help with maintenance and ongoing costs, then that makes it maybe feasible for the schools to cooperate with the city and make these facilities available. Because I think we have a lot of resources. We just need to use them better. And then develop some new ones too, so.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Danny. All right, so we'll stand adjourned until 7 o'clock. And we'll start the regular council meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Mr. Matt, I'm calling you right now.
All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's City Council meeting on April 3rd. And I apologize, it's 7:02. All right, we'll call the meeting to order. Our first order of business is our invocation and pledge, and tonight we have Pastor Robert Castro from the Calvary Chapel Church, and please remain standing, and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance right after. Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. Thank you for allowing me to be here to open up an invocation. If you'll bow your hearts with me, please. Heavenly Father, thank you, Lord, for the opportunity to be here tonight. And Lord, we pray for your wisdom, Lord, to fill this hall, fill each member of the council. Lord, for the decisions having to do with our city. Lord, thank you for each member here, Lord. And thank you for the representatives from our first responders, those who get put in serious conditions, serious situations. Lord, we pray for your protection over those departments, each one of those men and women. And Lord, tonight, we invite you to be here. Lord, this week is probably the most important week on our church calendar as we remember and celebrate the biggest event, I think, in human history, and that's the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Lord, I pray tonight that you would be here as the discussions are going forth, things that are being voted on, Lord, having to do with our city, having to do with all the different areas of our city. Fill each one of these members, Lord, with your wisdom, that the votes would be gone true, discussions that would be happen. Lord, this is all done for your glory. Thank you that you love our city, you love our streets, you love this place. So be with us tonight, and we pray all of this in the matchless name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
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 Please join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you, Mr. Lavender. All right, let the roll call show that all council members are present.
So noted.
Next item is our minutes.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the City Council regular meeting minutes from March 20th, 2023.
Second?
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the minutes are approved as presented. Claims against the city, D1.
Mayor McFarland, I move to accept and pay the claims against the city dated March 15th through 28th, 2023 as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Claims are approved. Meeting agenda approval. Any changes, Mr. Raines? We have none, Mr. Mayor. Anybody on council? Okay, seeing none, then I'll entertain a motion to approve tonight's meeting agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second?
A motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the agenda is approved. We have no special presentations, so we'll move right into consent agenda. All items listed with an asterisk are considered routine matters and will be enacted by one motion and one roll call vote to the council. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or member of the public so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence of the agenda. Is there anybody on the council that needs to remove anything or wants to remove anything? Anything from the public? All right, seeing none, then I'll entertain a motion to approve as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Gloria, can I please get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Edwards.
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston.
Yes.
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lavender.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, next is item H, which is our public comments. This is an opportunity for the public to address the council. Just as a reminder, the items that you are discussing, if you address council, are not on the agenda, so therefore we cannot respond. But if there are some items here, I think we have a public hearing later, so that item, we will allow public comment and we can respond. So if there's anybody here who would like to address the council, please step forward, state your name and your address, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Would appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Scott Farley. I live at 513 West Mattern Drive. And once again, I'm answering for a variance at 511 West Mattern Drive so I can rebuild a travel trailer and live in it. I tried working with planning and zoning, but the only thing they know how to do is stonewall me. They don't give me a chance. I've improved the property since I moved on there. When I first moved in there in 2017, the place looked like, I don't know, you guys remember Sanford and Son? It looked like that. So I moved it from where it looked like a junkyard to someplace halfway decent. And if I'm allowed to finish it, I'm able to make the old trailers look good. All I want is a home to retire to. I'm 57 years old, and I'm getting too old to do this. And plus, getting knocked around Iraq a couple years didn't help.
Okay.
So that's basically it.
All right. Thank you. Is there anyone else? All right, seeing no one else, and just to let you know, we'll have somebody from our staff follow up with you. All right, I'll close the public comments section, and then we'll move to our award of contracts, I-1. Kevin?
Thank you. Staff is recommending that the mayor and city council authorize the purchase of all replacement and new vehicles and equipment included in the blanket approval list for fiscal years 22 and 23 in an amount not to exceed the budget of authorized spending limits. Council will most likely recall that we did a blanket purchase agreement authorization previously, and that we found it very successful navigating the purchase challenges we find ourselves facing, and really gives us the flexibility to take advantage of every deal we're able to find out there when it comes to replacement and new vehicles. So again, we are asking for authorization to have authorization to purchase all the vehicles that are on the replacement list for fiscal year 22 and 23. And we had originally, we're going to add fiscal year 24 on there as well, but we're going to go ahead and let council approve that budget before we bring that authorization back. We have found it very successful working with the finance department, looking at our procurement requirements and making sure that we adhere to those as best we can without violating any state statutes when it comes to purchasing these vehicles. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Go ahead, Matt.
I just got one. Could you guys just let us know at least what you got going? Just an email or something, just so we know. But
We could probably, as we move through these purchases, as we know when they're going to occur, I would probably provide that report to Larry, and he could put that in the weekly
In your
update.
weekly report, Larry? Your
Yeah, that would
update.
not be an issue.
yeah, but I know we approved it in the.
That would keep him in the loop, too.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kevin.
Because these will be budgeted items, right?
Yes, everything's budgeted items, and the way we asked for this approval, we're finding vehicles are a lot more expensive, so we're looking for ways to cover the additional costs through our operating budgets when possible, so that's why we asked for the fund transfer capability, working with finance to achieve that, so, yes.
Lisa?
And I understand the need to do that now, especially because of the, the shortage of vehicles and any other equipment. But I'm hoping this isn't like something that we do in the future forever. Kind of like what you said, Matt, it's something that's always come to us before. So I understand now, but hopefully in the near future, we go back to our regular way of doing it.
And as you'll recall, we have taken several contracts for your approval. However, they've all been canceled. So
Right.
again, when we're able to follow our normal procurement rules, we're trying to adhere to that, but it's when we find ourselves faced with those challenges and the very short timelines to take advantage of having those vehicles available, we just can't follow the normal process. We are absolutely looking forward to getting back to normal. That would be great.
And will we continue to also kind of work with the local suppliers as well?
Yes, we absolutely will.
So, I mean, try and communicate with them and see if they can help us finding deals, if you will.
We've been successful and we've been unsuccessful in that, but we will continue to give every available vendor the opportunity to work with us.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you, Kevin. Any other questions or comments?
I just want to make the one point that you said, Kevin, kind of quickly, but we have approved these contracts and we missed out on vehicles because of the time it takes to approve it and go through the process and then get the money to the dealer, correct?
That's correct. And I'll use our police department as an example. You know, they've been very aggressive trying to find vehicles, and all of a sudden they'll find one in New Mexico, and it's sitting on the lot, and we need to purchase that within,
24 hours.
48 hours before it's gone. And all entities are doing the same thing. They're just trying to find opportunities.
So, yeah, just so we know, there is a real need and a real reason.
Any other comments or questions? All right, seeing none, then I'll call for resolution number, please, Gloria.
Resolution number 5529, a resolution of the council of the city of Casa Grande, Arizona, approving the purchase of budgeted vehicles, authorizing expenditure of public funds, authorizing the transfer of budget authority, and authorizing the execution of agreements, purchase orders, contracts, and all other necessary documentation by the city manager.
Mayor McFarland, I move that we approve resolution number 5529 as presented.
Second.
All right, a motion and a second. Gloria, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Edwards,
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston,
Yes.
Councilmember McBride,
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lavender,
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, next is I-2. Kevin?
Thank you. Staff is recommending that the mayor and city council award a sole source contract to West Tech Engineering LLC in an amount not to exceed $305,237, plus any applicable taxes and/or freight charges due at time of purchase. And this is to replace 2 Flender Oyster Stream aerator gearboxes at our wastewater treatment facility. If you've been out to our wastewater treatment facility, we have 4 aeration ditches, and that's where our bugs basically work on the waste and start to break it down so that we can reclaim the water from that stream. The aerators at each end of those large basins, they're like a large blender, and we have 2 of those that have failed, so we need to get those replaced. We have worked with our finance department to meet all the requirements for a sole source purchase. At this point, it wouldn't make sense to bring different equipment in because we'd have to retrofit the entire system to accommodate that new equipment. So we're looking at a sole source replacement. We want to get this back online as quickly as we can so that we have the redundancy in our treatment system so that if we do have any additional failures, we've got that backup equipment. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, seeing no questions, thank you, Kevin. I'll consider resolution number, please, Gloria.
Resolution number 5530, a resolution of the council of the city of Casa Grande, Arizona, accepting the sole source provider offer from West Tech Engineering LLC to provide 2 Flender OxyStream aerators gearboxes for the water reclamation facility, authorizing expenditure of public funds, authorizing the transfer of budget authority, and authorizing the execution of a contract.
Mayor McFarland, I move to approve resolution number 5530 as presented.
Second?
All right, I have a motion and a second. Gloria, can I please get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Edwards,
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston,
Yes.
Councilmember McBride,
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lavender.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, next is I3. Kevin, is this yours too?
No.
Oh, no, it's not. Sorry about that.
No problem. Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
Staff recommends Mayor and Council authorize the sole source purchase of 2 Lab Conco drying cabinets and 1 Lab Conco fuming chamber from Arrowhead Scientific, Inc. in the amount of $57,664.25. Both of these items are equipment that the police department currently has. What we have has a lifespan of about 10 years. They were purchased when the new PD was built back in 2011. So they're coming very close, or have actually passed their useful life. These pieces of equipment are used to process evidence in our crime lab. And essentially, that's pretty cut and dry of what the equipment is and what we need it for, and I'll answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions? Bob?
I have a comment. When I looked at tonight's agenda, I thought, well, the only thing that's not more boring, I guess, it was step up from the aerator gearboxes at the sewer plant was a drying cabinet. So pretty exciting agenda tonight. But I was going to make a comment in
Hopefully
today's
that's
world.
how important they are.
Yeah. In today's world, the drying cabinets and fuming chambers are very important. As you probably know, a lot of DNA testing is done on evidence, and a lot of that involves blood or other bodily fluids that have to be dried before they're sent to the lab. So although they may look disgusting when things are hanging up drying, it does serve a good purpose. And the fuming chamber, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, but that goes back to the idea of using super glue to develop fingerprints. And of course, it's dangerous to stand there and breathe it, so they put it in a fuming chamber and allow that too. So just a little,
Thank you for
a
the
little
education.
insight. Thought it'd make it a little more exciting.
Thank you, Chief.
We need a field trip, right, to go check it out?
Yeah.
It's always good
Thank
to
you,
have a little
Brian.
police knowledge on the council. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, seeing no other comments, then I'll call for a resolution number, please, Gloria.
Resolution number 5531, a resolution of the council of the city of Casa Grande, Arizona, accepting the sole source provider offer from Arrowhead Scientific, Inc. to provide 2 drying cabinets and 1 fuming chamber, authorizing expenditure of public funds and authorizing the execution of a contract.
Mayor McFarland, I would move for approval of resolution number 5531 as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. Gloria, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Edwards.
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston.
Yes.
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lavender.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, next is one of our ordinance resolutions and other matters subject requiring action by council, although I don't think there's any action on this particular subject. This is more informational. So Larry, I think you were going to do a quick presentation on the direction and maybe a little feedback on the election related to the charter amendments and the bond questions.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for the opportunity to present tonight, and I will be asking our city clerk, Ms. Leha, to join me in the dialogue. The council's well aware that in November of 2022, we had actually added both charter amendments to that bond, or to that election ballot, as well as general obligation bond questions. Through that process, our voters did approve one of the charter amendments that were recommended through our Charter Review Committee, and approved one of the 4 bond questions. And so from time to time, we are asked, the staff, what are the next steps? in moving forward with either making additional changes to the charter amendments and/or what would be the next step for a general obligation bond process. And obviously, you heard this evening from the on the community services master plan that there may be an opportunity or a need at some point in time for us to at least have some level of dialogue. And so tonight's dialogue is simply to advise the council of what our options are with those two particular categories. From a timing perspective, to place them on place them on general ballots, and to ultimately say that if we are interested in putting any of those items on the upcoming ballot of November of 2023, then we need to begin to move rather rapidly. And so what I'd like to do is just spend a minute on the two types, and then again, I'll hand the baton to Ms. Leha. But so essentially it's important to note that with our charter amendments, staff has evaluated the amendment, particularly question number 1 that failed, that was what we considered to be and what the Charter Review Committee essentially considered to be general administration, housekeeping items, for lack of a better word, changes to our charter. In our outreach to citizens, both before and after the election was completed, there were a couple of what I would consider to be consistent points that were being made to us on those particular charter amendments, and more particularly the general administration charter amendments. The first comment that we regularly received was that the November 22 ballot was very lengthy, that a number of individuals got what is more commonly referred to today as voter fatigue as they were attempting to go through those ballots, to the various ballots. We understand that there were a number of elements that were included and changes that were recommended by the Charter Review Committee as general administration. And so essentially, one of the discussions that we've had as a staff is the potential of unbundling that, what would have been one question, into multiple categories, and essentially trying to develop categories of similarities and asking our voters in multiple questions for those general housekeeping items. The unique thing about, I shouldn't say unique, the element that is important to remember on a charter amendment ballot is that we can actually put that before our voters in a consolidated election, which would be under the normal timeframes in August and November, and/or we can call for a special election in March or May. And so we do have options related to the charter amendments that are different than a general obligation bond, for example. A general obligation bond, under our statute, we must take that to a November consolidated ballot. And so again, the point that I want to stress on the general obligation bonds, as I let Ms. Leha present and get some feedback and direction from the mayor and council, is that there are a number of other entities that are evaluating similar taxing questions, because they're all going to go on a November ballot. And so that is something that, from a staff's perspective, as we've evaluated the overall outcome of that election, that we have been keeping in mind, and would certainly at least ensure that the mayor and council was aware of the types of questions that may be run concurrently in that same or a particular election. And so with that, I'm going to ask Gloria to talk specifically about the various ballots and or elections. And then I want to open it up for general comments and direction and feedback from the mayor and council.
Yes. Probably what is very important to note is the county elections department has already notified me, asking me if we are going to conduct an election in November. I said we weren't sure, but they will ask for us to sign a contract at least 150 days before the November election. So if we're going to move forward with a November 2023 election, we are running out of time fairly quickly. The process for anything requiring a publicity pamphlet, such as a bond election, requires a lot of pre-planning in advance, which includes us going out and finding someone to produce our publicity pamphlet and working with our bond counsel. I can't tell you how many reviews of this publicity pamphlet we go through before it actually goes for printing. And again, there are a lot of timeframes which we have to meet, so we are running really close to the November 2023 election. And as Larry mentioned, in the state of Arizona, we can only conduct elections during 4 months of the year, and that is the second Tuesday of March, third Tuesday of May, first Tuesday in August, and then the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November. Anytime we call for an election, the county's going to ask us 180 days, are you having an election? 150 days, we have to sign a contract with them. I did provide some information to the council in our RCA, just to give you a little bit of information on what it costs to conduct an election. To conduct an election for a bond election on November 7th, the county has estimated that our cost could be $116,000 to pay them, but if there are other jurisdictions that are holding an election on the November ballot, then it's split up by other jurisdictions. So if there's a school, high school, then it's divided by 2. If there's the elementary school, then it's divided by 3. So that cost to the county for November election can be split up by other jurisdictions. If we're the only ones on the ballot, then we bear the full cost. There are other costs to the city, and those are the publication, public notices, printing of the publicity pamphlet, which is about another $42,000. If we conduct an election in March or May of 2024, and I have to give you a heads up that the county has already let me know that they are not encouraging jurisdictions to conduct an election in March of 2024 because the state of Arizona will conduct its presidential preference election. They're not going to stop us from conducting an election in March, but they're not encouraging us either. So if we're talking about the May election, we could have a May election for our charter amendments. You could do an all-mail ballot election if that's the route we chose to go for either March or May. And the cost to the city to conduct an all-mail ballot election, and there's no splitting of that cost. I called to say, is there any way we can split it? No. That we bear the full cost of an all-mail ballot election, which would be about $157,000 for an all-mail ballot election to pay the county elections department. And then the city would also have to pay, again, for the publicity pamphlet and any publications, which is approximately another $42,000. Again, really important if we're looking at the November 2023 election, we are running out of time, and if that's the direction that the council wants to give us, we'll have to move really, really fast to get that done. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have regarding elections.
So Gloria, if I can just recap this for my own sake. So in November,
Of 2023.
but any bond override taxing question has to be in November,
That is
right? So
correct.
there's
Any
no
bond
other option for that. So really the only options for the charter question, or we have 4 different options for the charter question.
Correct.
But we could do it in March, May, or August?
Correct, or you can do it in November.
Of an off year.
You can do your
Right. I know
both the
November.
bond and
I know you can do it in
charter
November.
Correct.
But if
And
you-
then we also have to keep in mind, in 2024, we will have a council election in August. So then we have to ask ourselves, well, if we got to wait till May, do we just wait till August? Because we will have a regular city council election in August.
So, and then my understanding is that I don't think anybody, well, I think the schools are going in November of 2023, this year, correct, Mr. Lavender?
Yes, sir.
So the high school and elementary school. Then I know that the county has to go during a general for their
November.
I'll call maintenance road tax which is a half cent. This is totally different from the new roads that we were trying to pass through the PRTA. This is the maintenance tax. It's been in existence for, 20 years or something like that? And it's up in '26. So they're gonna try and get it voted through in '24, November of '24. And if that fails, then they would also try in '26. So, so those are what I know in terms of the elections. I know the PRTA, which is the new road tax, is looking at 2025. So that covers about every November election between now and '26 almost. So those are things to think about in terms of, how, if we wanted to go back out and do a bond election, that's gonna have to be in November. The charter, we could kind of pick and choose if we wanted to. So, I mean, if they're gonna do the March, then couldn't we do a mail-in? And of course, that's a lot of money for just a charter
Just for charter
question.
questions.
For a charter.
Right.
That's the problem. That's a lot of money for charter questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if I can, I think it would be important for staff to recognize, number one, if the mayor and council, in our internal discussions and review with the attorney's office and city manager's office, we essentially believe that there is not a need to really get back into the charter. The Charter Review Committee had done that. They'd put together a set of recommendations. And we, at least in our opinion, we believe that if there is a desire to pursue additional work on that general administration question, that we could develop the categories and bring back more information to the mayor and council if there is a desire on the part of the council to do that. And Mr. Mayor, I tend to agree with you. If we passed on the March election, why would we elect to have an election in May when we'll have a regular election, a primary election in our case for the council that we'll be paying for anyhow?
Well, and Larry, we could look at going with the schools. It's not a tax question, so I don't know what the schools think about that. Meaning running the charter with them, then we can split it 3 ways in terms of the cost. I'd like to do the bond, but the bond's a tax question. I think
Right.
that wouldn't be fair to the schools, to the elementary and high school district. But a charter question, I don't think gets in the way of the override. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Shouldn't.
I mean, let's look at that. Maybe we can look at that, and then obviously the bonds, we're gonna have to push off. I don't think it can't be this November 23. Maybe it's something to throw out there in 25 when the county goes for their maintenance.
24.
Or 24 when they go for the maintenance. Yeah, it has to be in November, yeah.
That's a state.
And it wouldn't be
just
on
a
top of
statutory
necessarily the council elections, unless somebody doesn't make it through the primary. So I don't think it muddies it too much for council. I don't know, that's just my opinion, so. Any thoughts, Matt?
I just had a couple questions. So it costs us $116,000 no matter how many things we put on there. Is that correct?
No,
Gloria?
it gets divided.
No, no, but I mean, we could have council, we could have our charter questions, our geo, like they only charge us one, I mean,
The election is, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's $116,000
I mean, we can put as much as we want,
divided by
right?
different
But it's
jurisdictions.
divided by
That is
all
correct.
No, but I'm saying we could put charter,
Yes,
bond,
that is
everything.
correct.
So we can pay for one election and get all of them if we wanted to go down that road.
Correct.
Okay.
There are some variable costs that
I mean,
might be primarily on
But I mean,
publicity
yeah, but I mean
pamphlet.
roundabout, we're not getting
yes.
charged
That's
per
separate.
question or per.
Right.
anything.
That $116,000 is separate from what the city pays directly for publication and printing of a publicity.
No, yeah, I understand. I
That's
just wanted
the
to make sure.
approximate 42,000.
We just pay for one a little bit.
Right.
And then the other thing that I wanted to make is when we did this first bond election, had to start this far ahead before, and we didn't know what the economy was gonna be like. The economy was much different when we signed that contract to
Right.
do that. And then the last question, I remember how many years ago, Gloria, but we did an all-mail ballot. I think it was for a franchise election or
It may have been
or
a
a
franchise
charter.
election, right.
Well, the
It's been a
last
while.
mail-in
Our
one was for our general
general
plan.
plan.
That was the
Oh,
last
correct.
mail-in one.
Okay.
Correct.
2018.
Okay, and so the one thing about the mail-in, once I see the cost, I'm not as encouraged, but our response seems to be
Higher.
higher, right? So, but then I saw the cost of it, so, yeah. I don't think it'd behoove us to do a separate for charter questions.
But Mayor, you know, one of the things that, and Matt, you made a good point, we could put it all in one, but I think
That's too
there was a
much, yeah.
lesson learned this time around. I think Larry called it fatigue. And I feel like, you know, to do it again like that, we're probably insulting the public. And I guess I can't,
To be clear, I wasn't advocating that at all.
No,
because
no,
that's a
no,
problem.
right, but-
I was just saying it costs us just an amount,
Exactly.
no matter how much you put on there.
Exactly, and so I think
We
that
have to
we
do the
lesson
council so
learned.
we could do the charter or whatever, yeah.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Bob.
Just a comment, I agree with Donna about rerunning the GO bond so soon. And I did want to make the comment, in my opinion, the GO bond is much, much more important than the charter amendments. We can work around the charter amendments. And my feeling is we should have this same conversation a year from now and decide on what we want to do next year.
Well, we could throw the charter questions in with the school overrides and then share in the cost of that. You know, it would also
Yeah.
lower their cost as well. So it's something to think about. We can look at that, Larry, if you guys could put something together and if it makes sense. If not, to Bob's point, you know, let's have a conversation a year, probably in January, a year from now.
Right.
But, or even December, because we have to put pamphlets together and information, so.
But we kind of want to talk about the charter questions, because I think the point is we don't want to run the charter questions and the GO bonds.
No, that wasn't the intent.
That's what I mean, so the charter questions, do we want to wait that long, or do we want to start talking?
Well,
about
I'm saying
doing
the charter questions you could do now.
Yeah, okay, that's what I was getting at.
And then the GO, we would wait. Because to your point, I think it's too soon, and I don't think we're ready for it anyway. So it's gonna take
And so both the high
more.
school and the elementary school district are doing their override.
In November of this year.
Continuation of the override.
Right. So it'd be split 3 ways if we went in on that one.
Correct.
I think we should make
Is
sure
that
that they'll be
mail-in
okay.
only?
I believe November's mail-in only.
I think
isn't
it's mail-in only.
When I talked to the elections department, they did not indicate if it's an all-mail ballot election scheduled for November.
Because it's
But
only
I can
three, it's
certainly
only
find
three
out.
things on the
Yeah.
ballot.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, you kind of stumped me, and I didn't know what to say. I do agree with Donna, and even on the charter amendments, I think it's too soon to go back. I mean, it's like, we told you no. Well, how about now? And I don't think that's, I
Too
think they
soon.
can wait. I don't think it's a big issue.
I just think that their timing is better now than if you wait. Because you've got 24, and then 25 and 26, and there's some big things in 24 and 26 for sure.
And we can do charter amendments in 26. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, you can do it,
They're
you can
not.
do it in the spring too, so.
They're not
it's-
urgent,
it's
I don't
not-
think,
It's not that critical, so.
Do you think they're that urgent, Larry?
There are some elements within those charter amendments that absolutely build efficiency within the organization, and from an operational perspective. You also have the matter with the selection of the magistrate that we've talked about trying to get corrected. And so
Cleaned up.
those, in my view at least, are key items. There's a number, to Councilmember Huddleston's point, there's a number of general house cleaning items that really are just attempting to put our city charter in alignment with either best practices and/or statute that are probably not urgent. But if the mayor and council would like, staff could attempt to at least break out. Stephen, how many various amendments were going to be made in that first question? Do you recall? Wasn't it something like 60? Yeah, so there were a number of elements in that first general administration question. What staff will do is spend a little bit of time attempting to categorize those in two really topics, whether or not they're urgent or not, number one, and number two, if they fall into a general category of need. and I can distribute that to the mayor and council and let you take a look at that. We obviously are accustomed to operating the way that we have for a number of decades, and so we can live with either electing to postpone, and/or we can live, we can certainly prepare to essentially put something on the ballot. But as Gloria has pointed out, if we're going to try to make the November 2023 ballot, we are on a very short runway today.
Well, it may not matter if the legislature has its way.
It may even be worse, Mayor.
We may not be a charter city.
Right. So if, what I'm hearing is perhaps work on the charter categories, just to refresh the mayor and council what came out of that general administration question, not necessarily making any commitments to any type of an election timeframe on either of those, but ultimately not having any additional dialogue on the general obligation bonds for a minimum of a year.
I think that's the general consensus. Getting head nods.
Okay.
But we didn't vote on that.
Yeah, there's no vote, Mr. Mayor. This was just discussion.
Brett would have bit my head off already. Thanks, Mark, for being nice.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Larry. All right, we have one more item on, besides our reports. This is item number L1. This is a public hearing. And this is Planning and Development Director. Oh, maybe it's not. Mr. Gagliardi.
All right, good evening, members of council. So this is an amendment to the Vista Estates Planned Area Development Zone District. Originally, the Vista Estates PAD was approved in 2006. It's a 321-acre area that sits just on the north side of Selma Highway, west of I-10. As you see, the 2006 Planned Area Development Zone District was arranged from I-10 to the east to Hennis to the west, with the most intense uses near I-10, the multifamily area and an office business park. And as you proceeded east, you went into a low-density residential area with a commercial corner at Hennis and Selma. The proposed PAD would place a light industrial land use closest to I-10. That light industrial area could also accommodate some commercial uses, but basically buffering the light industrial area from the single-family residential area would be 45 acres of multifamily, and then a commercial area there at the corner of Camino Mercado in Selma. Another substantial change would be an increase in density in accordance with our newly adopted PAD residential design standards that allows for smaller lot areas and smaller lot widths. There would be a density increase from 3.2 dwelling units per acre for single family to 4.5 dwelling units per acre. And that would likely result in an increase of 720 homes to 839 homes approximately. The multifamily area would also increase in density in that the current PAD allows for 16 dwelling units per acre. If this amendment were approved, it would allow 17.3 dwelling units per acre. In evaluating amendments to PADs, we have to consider certain criteria, and the staff report does dive into those criteria in more detail, but I want to talk about two elements. One is conformance with the city's general plan. The light industrial that's proposed lines up with the commerce and business designation of our general plan. The general plan does call for commerce and business uses along the I-10 corridor in this area, and light industrial is compatible with that designation. The majority of the site, however, is in that yellow, which is classified as neighborhoods. Neighborhoods accommodates primarily single-family development at a maximum density of 4.5 dwelling units per acre. And then multifamily is also allowed. You can have up to a 25-acre site that allows 12 dwelling units per acre max. And then you can have up to a 20-acre site that allows higher density up to 24 dwelling units per acre. One of the other elements is that along the eastern edge of the PAD lies the Casa Grande Linear Park Trail. And this PAD does acknowledge that the easternmost portion of the PAD will be dedicated for trail purposes. The other criteria that I want to talk about is the impact of the plan on existing and anticipated traffic conditions. At Planning Commission back in February, that was one of the more significant concerns with regard to how will primarily the light industrial development get access. Currently, Selma does have a bridge over I-10, but really to get to that area, primarily currently you would come up from Jimmy Kerr to Mitchell Road to Selma, or you could take Selma west to Jimmy Kerr. In the future, however, there is a planned interchange with I-10 in Selma, and Hennis is planned to go from Jimmy Kerr all the way up to Val Vista. So in decades out, there will be a really well-established roadway network, plus Camino Mercado is planned to extend as well. And this graphic shows you the ultimate roadway network in the future. After some discussion, we determined that due to the fact that the light industrial area, as well as other areas within that PAD, will be subject to major site plan review, traffic impact analyses will be looked at that time to determine whether the impact to the existing roadway network will have to be improved in order to support certain developments. With regard to the notification, it did follow all that is required by city code. We had received a couple of comments from the Casa Vista neighborhood, which is directly on the other side of Selma. But once providing those inquirers with information, there were no additional questions. At its February 2nd meeting, Planning Commission did unanimously recommend that council approve this PAD amendment. There were a couple of technical modifications that have since been addressed. Basically, there's only one condition of record, and that pertains to the standard requirement regarding dedication of right-of-way. Should the city need certain roadways dedicated as part of a larger project prior to the time of development, the owner of property within this PAD would dedicate right-of-way. And that would be particularly for Hennis or for Selma. And that concludes the presentation.
So the single-family piece has cause, certificates of assured water?
It does.
Okay. And is the developer willing to develop the Camino Mercado connection up to Florence?
So as part of the PAD, it does identify the Camino Mercado extension through Vista Estates. However, it wouldn't necessarily be extended all the way up to Florence at that time. It really would be driven by the results of traffic impact analysis. It would evaluate the level of service of the roadway network necessary to serve the proposed development. If there does need to be further extensions, in order for the project to work, they would have to do off-site improvements such as extending Hennis or Camino Mercado.
Because there is development going north of them, right, that apartment complex, there's two potential hotels, there's,
Correct, but.
yeah, it's north of Early.
It's north of Early, there's a gap of
It's
property.
another mile.
So another mile,
Yeah.
okay, all right, yeah, this is pretty far south. All right, the only concern I would have is Selma TI is not built yet, it's probably a little ways off, and accessing that light industrial and business core, put some pressure on Selma and Hennis. Not that it's impossible for them to handle it, but I guess we'll wait and see what the traffic count says, so. Anyway, just some of my thoughts, just thinking out loud. Anybody else have any comments or questions on it? Okay, thank you. All right, then this is a public hearing, so I'll open the floor to the public. Is there anybody here who is here to speak on the Vista Estates PAD change? It's item L1 on our agenda. Okay, seeing no one, then I will close the public hearing and call for an ordinance number, please, Gloria.
Ordinance number 1178.277.01. An ordinance of the council of the city of Casa Grande, Arizona, approving a major amendment to Vista Estates planned area development adopted for property generally located at the northeast corner of Selma Highway and Hennis Road, Casa Grande, Arizona.
Mayor McFarland, I move approval of ordinance number 1178.277.01 as presented.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Gloria, can I please get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Edwards.
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston.
Yes.
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lavender.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right. Next is reports, and I'll start with you, Anthony.
Oh, we had a wonderful time at our firefighters, our golf tournament, as well as fundraising out there with also Councilmember Lavender. And so really enjoyed that, looking forward. I know Police Department is coming up on April the 29th, I believe, coming up in there as well, their fundraiser in regards to our Police Department as well. But I did have a wonderful time. Chief's here, and I let him know I enjoyed myself at that. Got a chance to talk a lot about firefighters and everything. It was really great. We had a great time.
Good. Thank you, Anthony. Donna?
Just a couple quick things. Lisa was our rock star at the Boys and Girls Club Dancing for the Stars. A lot of money was raised, and it was just an awesome event. I don't know that if the mayor has to wear the Maricopa jersey or not.
I don't think so. I think my Casa Grande rock stars rocked it out, so.
Okay. Ooh, good.
We did.
And then also,
We're looking out for you.
the mayor and I did the
I
mayor's
appreciate
reading program reception, and we had a nice number of our people there. And we had a nice little time. Some of our winter visitors have already gone, but it was nice with the group we had. All the kids received bookmarks, bracelets, and all of our volunteers received their water bottle, and it was filled with candy thanks to Amber and the library staff. So it was really nice. So that's it.
Thank you. Matt?
Thanks, Mayor. Saturday was a great, beautiful day in Casa Grande, as always. Got to go to Public Safety Day. Huge turnout, families, a lot of people having fun there. I got to see a couple of guys that I grew up with that are in leadership positions, like the deputy chief out there and some firefighters. So it was fun to see some people that have been around a long time taking care of our city. Not that long, right, Brian? And then I've noticed on Instagram a lot and stuff, updates, like I saw a good one with things to do for the month of April. I don't know if it was the Community Service Department or PIO or everybody, but great job. Our social media is looking pretty good to help get the word out there about what's going on. We have Youth Commission this Saturday, and then we have shredding again on April 22nd, shredding and e-cycle at First American Credit Union on Pinal Avenue. And we talked a bit about trails tonight, and I've been enjoying them, and it's getting to be a lot more people. So one thing is watch out for snakes now because it's getting warmer. And number two, pick up after your dogs if you take them on the trail with you. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Matt. Mr. Levner?
I attended the town hall that Supervisor Miller put on. It was very informative. He did an excellent job. I, like Councilmember Edwards, enjoyed the firefighters golf tournament. They did a great job organizing it and look forward to the tournament at the end of the month with the police. The Cesar Chavez Committee has selected 40 of our seniors to receive a scholarship, and we'll be doing the event on April 21st at the Neon Sign Park. And not only was Lisa a rock star that night, but Casa Grande's own Jesus Ramos is now 20-0 and won his fight by a knockout. And so I think there's a championship fight coming his way pretty soon. So we're really proud of Jesus and what he's doing as well, representing our community.
Lisa?
Well, thank you to everyone who donated to the Boys and Girls Club. It was a fundraiser, so yes, I'm glad I got through that, and thank you guys for attending. Sure, glad that's over. We'll see who's on next year, guys. I did it, so I'm done, so. Who's next? The mayor and I know Larry attended the CAP dinner the other day. It was kind of interesting because I thought it was going to be a full presentation, about water, and of course I had to have my caffeine in me to be ready for that, and it wasn't. It was actually really the board was in town, and it was nice. They were doing their board meeting and inviting some of the leaders and community members to attend the meeting just to kind of network and everything. So that was a really nice dinner. I attended the fair housing training that the Housing Department, Mary Allen, put on last week, and I like attending that, and I know, it was mostly for realtors and people that do leasing and everything, but I like to attend as a council member because, we set policy and zoning, and I think it's important for us to remember some of the laws, that happen. So the Fair Housing Commission puts that on, and so I enjoyed attending that as well. The Biz Outlook lunch, Mayor, I think, anytime you put the I-10 widening on an agenda, people will show up. So it was definitely a full house, and people were listening and waiting and, just waiting for something to come of that.
Something to start.
I know. But it was a, great meeting, and it was good to give people an update. And the Public Safety Day, again, great day, great seeing our first responders. But I think the most interesting for me is watching the canine demos and Sergeant Ingstrom in that gear and getting attacked by those dogs, and it was just pretty intense. Not attacked, I mean, it was a demo, but it is amazing though, watching that, because I haven't seen any of that before. So those canines and those handlers do a fantastic job, and it really was great. I was holding my breath as they were doing it. So, but good job to everyone that put that on.
Bob?
Mayor, as part of our weekly update, Mr. Raines always gives us a copy of the newsletter from the police department, and I took special notice and appreciation of the article from Dr. Paul Ellis, who is being welcomed as the new senior chaplain of the police department. He, of course, replaces Dr. Bob Cornelius, who at 95 years of age has retired. I suspect, knowing Bob, that he's not completely finished yet. I suspect he'll still be involved to some extent. Dr. Ellis congratulates him on 48 years of service and quotes a Bible verse of "Well done, good and faithful servant." And I think that is very appropriate for Bob. He served the department for my entire 33 years with the department, and he was there long before me, and he was there long after me. So congratulations to Bob on his retirement. And Brian, please pass on to him my congratulations. Thank you.
He's probably going to show up in the reserves or something.
Yeah, oh, yeah. He will.
All right. Yeah, a busy week last week and the week before. Obviously, the I-10 widening was a big deal, and we had over 300 people at the luncheon for the chamber. Earlier that morning, we also had the Pinal Partnership breakfast over in Maricopa, where the county supervisors kind of gave an update on what was going on in the county. Again, well attended. It was held at the Elements, which is the little building out in front of their entertainment center there, where the casino is. Anyway, we were there. Safety Day was great. In fact, I talked to several people. They told me it was the best attendance that they had seen since we've been doing it. So congratulations to really all of our first responders, our police and fire, and everybody who was there to help support as well. Been getting a lot of calls from our U.S. delegation, our U.S. legislators. Eli Crane came to town. We took him around to our HOHP. Also, Juan Ciscomani, who's also our representative, he is planning to come to town here in the next week. So Casa Grande is on the map, and people are noticing. So it's been interesting, even getting calls from Mr. Gallegos, who's running for Senate for the Democrats this next election against Sinema and whoever the Republicans put up. So they're even calling. So it's been interesting. I've been getting a lot of calls also on Lucid, and so let me just address that real quickly. We were notified last week that they were going to cut their staffing. They have a little over 3,000 employees. Most of them are here in Casa Grande, and so they were calling for an 18% cut. That ended up being a number around 968 in Casa Grande. So those employees who were notified last week have I think it's a 2-month severance that they're giving them, which is pretty generous with health benefits. And then we put out a press release last week, I think it was on Thursday, that identified the 18% cut and also identified, places they could go to try and get some help. And I think they were given this information as well through their employment group. But Arizona at Work is a great place for those folks to go to get help. We feel for them and their families. We want to try and make sure we get them back on their feet as soon as possible. I think that we can do that with the help of Arizona at Work and our other local companies that are hiring. And just to mention a few of them, Abbott, Kohler, Hexcel, Frito-Lay, Franklin Foods, ACO Polymer, all are hiring. So on top of that, we have Procter & Gamble coming. There's another 300-400 jobs there. And that's in Coolidge. In fact, it's 11 miles from here, and it's 11 miles from Coolidge. Don't tell Coolidge that. But anyway, we can definitely make sure that we get some people hired and get those positions filled. So it's a reorganization. The plant is not closing. Just to reiterate, because I have had several people call me, and these are news people, and they go, can you tell me about Lucid closing the plant in Casa Grande? So that's the kind of misinformation that's out there. I want to make sure that is dispelled. They are moving forward with the expansion. They have we'll call it 2.4 million square feet that they will complete. And when that is completed, they'll also then begin production on their SUV. So that is their intentions, to put out their SUV by 2024. That's what they've told us. So we're going to go with their word and hope that their reorganization goes well.
And there's many small businesses in town who are the backbone of this community that are hiring
as well. Yes, good
Let's
point.
not forget that.
Good point, Matt. Speaking of one small business in town who needs workers. Correct. All right. And then the other least favorite topic that I have is your 2023 legislature. Today is the 85th day of the 2023 legislative session. Total of 1,630 bills were introduced this year. 37 of the bills were transmitted to the governor. Of those, 17 have been signed into law, and the remaining 20 were vetoed. Some of those being food tax, rental lease tax, which quite frankly would have been crippling for the city of Casa Grande had we lost those revenues. And the frustrating part is that it's done in the interest of saving people who need help. Well, the people who need help are on WIC and have, systems that they're in for food that don't pay sales tax. So there's no sales tax paid on folks who have food stamps or are on WIC programs. Same thing with rental insurance. If you're in a Section 8 needing help, there is no rental tax that you pay. So I'm not sure who they're trying to help. I think it's just positioning. And anyway, there's a bunch of bills that are still active and some that are being resurrected. And I won't get into the details on how they do that, but because it's mind-numbing. But just suffice it to say that I continue to keep an eye on them, along with the help of our Arizona League of Cities and Towns. So we'll continue to do that, and if you all can help in any way, I would appreciate the support. We've got a bunch of stuff that's coming up for our community services group and our youth commission, which Matt already mentioned, but we have Rec, Dine, and Dash, which is Friday, April 14th. The Catfish Rodeo, which isn't over yet, just coming up on April 15th, always a fan favorite. And then the fly-in breakfast out at the airport on Saturday, April 29th. And the Dia de los Niños is Saturday, April 29th as well. Also, if you need a job, also the city of Casa Grande is hiring. So look at our website. We have everything from airport operations to summer recreation jobs. So if you're a student and you're looking for a summer job, take a look at our job site. Laboratory techs, maintenance workers, police officers, recruits and laterals. So if you know somebody who's up in the valley who hates commuting to Phoenix and would like to come and stay and work in Casa Grande, we have a spot for you. So that's it. That's all I have. Anybody else for the good of the order? All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Thanks for listening to our reports, and thanks for being here tonight. Meeting adjourned.